Most people think heartbreak is loud. But for me, it started quietly, too quietly. I came home early that Wednesday, exhausted from a long day, ready to surprise my wife with takeout from her favorite Thai place. But the moment I unlocked the door, the air shifted. My chest tightened. Something felt off. The lights were dim. The house was strangely still. And then I heard it. A soft laugh. The kind she only used when she was trying to impress someone. It was coming from upstairs. I froze halfway up the staircase. She wasn't talking to a friend. She wasn't talking to family. Her tone was different. Playful, flirty, almost shy. It sounded like the version of her she never used with me anymore. "You're impossible," she whispered, followed by a breathy laugh. I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there, listening to the sound of my own marriage cracking open. My wife, Lydia Cooper, had always been warm, affectionate, someone who cared about the little details. But over the past few months, that warmth evaporated. She stayed late at work more often. She guarded her phone like it held state secrets. She stopped asking about my day and stopped noticing when I stopped asking about hers. And I, Marcus Hale, husband, steady provider, loyal to a fault, kept telling myself she was stressed, tired, burnt out. I ignored every red flag because love can make even a smart man feel stupid. But as I stood silently on that staircase listening to her whisper, "I wish I could see you tonight," the pit in my stomach finally had a name. She wasn't just pulling away. She was giving herself to someone else. I stepped back down quietly, my heartbeat loud enough to drown out every rational thought. I left the takeout on the counter untouched. In that moment, it wasn't anger that consumed me. It was a strange, icy clarity. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because something in me knew this wasn't the first time, and she would lie anyway. That night, she came downstairs pretending nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek, gave some excuse about work stress, and took a shower before bed. I watched the water steam under the bathroom door, watched the outline of her shadow move as she hummed to herself. She didn't know that I knew. Not yet. And then, unexpectedly, the universe handed me a partner in pain. The next afternoon, I received a message request from a woman I didn't know. Her name was Emily Kerr, and her opening words made every suspicion crystallize. "Hi, I think our spouses are seeing each other." My stomach dropped. My palms went cold. Everything I feared came rushing back with sharp edges. We met in a quiet coffee shop 2 hours later. She looked exhausted, anxious fingers picking at her sleeve, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. But she was strong, too. Like someone who refused to drown no matter how deep the betrayal went. "I didn't want to believe it," she said, voice trembling. But I found messages. A lot of them. Late night ones. Deleted threads. Photos. Times that match when your wife said she was working late. I clenched my jaw until it started to ache. Emily pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. One message stood out immediately. "I'll tell him traffic was bad again. Same story as last week." From Lydia. The room felt smaller. My throat felt tight. I had been played, lied to, discarded. Emily looked at me with a mix of heartbreak and anger. "They think we're clueless," she whispered. I didn't speak for a long moment. Rage burned under my ribs, but it wasn't wild. It was controlled, focused, the kind of anger that doesn't scream, it plans. Finally, I said, "Then let's stop letting them think they're smarter than us." Emily inhaled sharply. "You want to expose them?" "No," I answered quietly, coldly. "I want them to expose themselves, and then watch everything crumble." Her eyes narrowed, not in fear, but in agreement. Two betrayed spouses becoming a quiet storm. And that's when my revenge began, slow, strategic, and perfectly timed. Because before I confronted Lydia, before I even hinted I knew, I needed one thing. A moment so devastating, she would never forget it. A moment that would hit her exactly where she never expected. A moment I was already planning in the back of my mind. Even as Emily's hands shook across the table. I didn't sleep that night. My body lay still, but my mind raced in every direction, replaying Emily's evidence over and over again. Lydia slept beside me like nothing had changed, like she wasn't whispering to another man hours earlier, telling him she wished she was with him instead. Her breathing was calm. Mine wasn't. I stared at the ceiling for hours, the moonlight casting pale lines across the room. Every exhale felt heavier than the last. My chest tightened every time her phone lit up on the nightstand. She slept through it. I didn't. Around dawn, when she finally got up a shower, I turned slightly and saw it. A new message. Alex, last night was perfect. Same time today. I didn't open it. I didn't touch her phone. I didn't need to. The message alone was enough to turn my heart into glass. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. A trembling one, the kind that comes right before a breaking point. But instead of breaking, something inside me steadied. Today wasn't going to be the day I confronted her. It was going to be the day I set things in motion. I waited until Lydia left for work, dressed nicer than usual, wearing the same perfume Emily said she smelled on her husband. She kissed my cheek like a chore and said she'd probably work late again. I smiled. It's fine. Take your time. She didn't even look suspicious. When the door closed, I sat on the couch and allowed the silence to settle. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. It was Emily. Emily. He left early. Said he has a meeting. I know where he's going. Me. Same here. We need to be smart. Emily. I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Me. Then come over tonight. There was a pause. Then. Emily. Okay. Tell me the plan. Except, I didn't have the full plan yet. Not until I discovered something else. Around noon, I drove to Lydia's workplace. I wasn't there to confront her. I was just looking for truth. I parked across the street from the office building, watching people come in and out. And that's when I saw her. Not Lydia. Them. Lydia's car pulled up behind a silver sedan. The driver got out first. Alex Kerr. My stomach twisted, but I stayed hidden, leaning low in my seat. Lydia stepped out next, smooth and smiling, her hair falling perfectly over her shoulders. She looked younger than she had in weeks, happier, almost glowing. The worst part, Lydia didn't even look around, didn't check if anyone could see. She walked straight to Alex like he belonged to her, like she belonged to him. He opened his arms, and she leaned into him, quick, subtle, but intimate. A public embrace, right in front of anyone who happened to see, right in front of me, without knowing it. I swallowed hard, my throat stinging. Something inside me didn't just crack, it rearranged. There was no doubt left, no hesitation. They weren't slipping, they were sinking, and I wasn't going to pull them out. When I drove back home, Emily was already waiting outside in her car, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her sane. Her eyes were red but sharp. There was exhaustion, yes, but also fire. I opened her door. She stepped out slowly. You found something, she said immediately. I can tell. I nodded once. They met in public. They didn't even hide it. Emily's jaw locked. She whispered something under her breath. Not anger, not shock, but grief. Then she straightened. Tell me what we're doing. I motioned her inside. In the kitchen, we sat across from each other. Emily wrapped her hands around a mug of tea I made her. She didn't drink it, just held on to it like warmth was the only thing keeping her steady. I explained my idea, not the dinner part yet, but the strategy. We need a moment where everything catches them off guard. I said, not yelling, not fighting, something that destroys the lies they built together. Emily listened carefully, nodding slowly. And you're sure you want me there? She asked. That's the entire point, I replied. They won't expect you. Not tonight. Not ever. They've built their whole affair around secrecy and control. We're going to take that control away. Emily tightened her grip on the mug. I want him to feel even a fraction of what I've felt this week. He will, I murmured, and so will she. Then, for a moment, the bitterness between us softened. Not romantically, but humanly. We were two broken people stitching ourselves back together with resolve. Emily exhaled. Tell me the rest. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Tonight, when Lydia pretends there's heavy traffic again, you're going to be here. And I'm going to set the table for two. Calm. Normal. Nothing suspicious. And when she walks in, Emily finished my sentence with chilling precision. She's going to see me sitting in the seat she thinks no one can replace. I nodded. But there was more. We're not doing this to scare them, I said. Not to get revenge in a wild way. We're doing it so they understand, in silence, how badly they've broken the trust we built. Emily's expression steadied. When? She asked. Tonight, I said. And trust me, she'll never forget it. Emily stayed with me the entire afternoon, Both of us moving around the house, quietly, carefully, like people preparing for something delicate and dangerous. Neither of us raised our voice. Neither of us acted impulsively. Every step had a purpose. Every minute brought us closer to the moment Lydia would walk into a reality she didn't know she helped create. I took out the ingredients for dinner. Lydia's favorite meal, the one she used to beg me to cook whenever she had a rough week. Back when she still talked to me. Back when I mattered. Emily watched me slice vegetables while leaning against the counter, her fingers tapping unconsciously. She wasn't impatient, just anxious. The kind of anxious that builds after weeks of pretending everything is fine while your life crumbles quietly. She always bragged about how you cook, Emily murmured. Alex complained about my cooking all the time. I guess now I know why he kept comparing me. I paused mid-slice. You don't deserve to be compared to anyone, I said gently. Nobody does. Her eyes softened, just a little, and then she looked away before emotion could take over. I hope tonight changes something, she whispered. It will, I assured her. Not just for them, for us. While the meal simmered on the stove, I set the table. 2 plates, 2 glasses, candles. Not romantic, not intimate, just symbolic. Beautifully symbolic. A quiet stage for a loud truth. Emily stepped back and looked at the setting. She's going to come in thinking you're alone. She always assumes that, I said. She thinks I'm predictable. Emily breathed out slowly. They both think we're fools. Not after tonight. The room fell into a thoughtful silence. Outside, the sun slipped lower, throwing warm orange light across the dining room. The house looked peaceful, calm, almost too calm for what was coming. At 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Lydia. Traffic is a nightmare. Don't wait up. I'll eat something later. Emily's jaw clenched. I stared at the message for a few seconds, letting the weight of it settle inside me. The lie wasn't even creative anymore. Just lazy, casual, thoughtless. Like she believed I would swallow any story. She fed me simply because she didn't respect me enough to expect suspicion. I typed back. No worries. Just get home safe. Emily watched the message send. You're calm, she whispered. I'm done being the man she thinks I am. I answered. We sat quietly after that. The food was ready, the table was set, and all we had to do was wait. Emily picked at her sleeve. I kept glancing at the door. My heartbeat wasn't frantic, just steady and heavy, like a drum preparing for a reveal. At 7:32 p.m., headlights flashed through the living room window. Emily inhaled sharply. She's here, I said. We didn't move quickly. We didn't scramble. We simply took our places. Emily sat in Lydia's usual seat, her posture straight, her expression composed but tense. I sat opposite her, calm, my breathing even. The footsteps approached the door, fast and patient. Keys rattled. The lock clicked. The door opened. Lydia stepped in, brushing hair from her face with a tired sigh, still pretending she had fought through impossible traffic to get home to me. She started speaking before she even looked up. Marcus, you won't believe. She froze. Her purse slipped from her shoulder and dropped onto the floor with a soft thud. Her eyes darted from the table, to the plates, to Emily, to me, and back to Emily again. Shock hit her like a physical blow. Emily didn't speak. She didn't glare. She didn't smirk. She just met Lydia's eyes with a quiet, steady sadness that said more than any confrontation ever could. Lydia's mouth opened, then closed. Her throat moved in a tight swallow. Her eyes flicked to me again, searching, panicked, calculating. What is this?" she stammered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move from my seat. "It's dinner," I said calmly. "You used to like it." Her chest rose and fell too fast. "Marcus, why is she here? Why is—" Emily finally spoke, her voice low but devastating. "You know why." Lydia flinched like the words were a slap. She took a hesitant step backward, then forward again, caught between running and confronting, her composure crumbling by the second. "I can explain," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "You've been explaining for months. You just didn't know I stopped believing the stories." Her eyes widened, filling with fear. Not guilt, not sorrow, but fear. Fear of losing the comfort she took for granted. Emily straightened slightly. "Alex and Lydia weren't. Careful, Marcus. They didn't expect us to talk. They didn't expect to be seen. They didn't expect consequences." Lydia looked at Emily like she'd never seen her before. You told him, she breathed. No, Emily replied. You told him. Every lie, every excuse, every message. You just didn't know your secrets weren't as secret as you thought. Lydia's face went pale, then red, then pale again. She tried to speak, but emotion strangled the words. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply said what needed to be said. You walked out of our marriage long before tonight. I'm just finally catching up. Her lip trembled, and a tear slid down her cheek. Marcus, please. I made mistakes, but... You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a choice. And that's when the silence in the room became heavier than any accusation. Lydia hadn't expected witnesses. She hadn't expected consequences. She hadn't expected Emily. She especially hadn't expected me to stop chasing explanations and start accepting the truth. And this was only the beginning. Lydia stood in the doorway like she just walked in her own nightmare. Her eyes darted everywhere. My face, Emily's, the table, the plates, searching for some angle, some excuse, some lie she could crawl into and hide behind. But for the first time, there wasn't one. Not a single door left for her to escape through. The silence between us felt like the last few seconds before a fire alarm. Emily stayed seated, her hands wrapped gently around a napkin in her lap. She didn't look triumphant. She didn't look vengeful. She looked tired. Tired of lies. Tired of betrayal. Tired of trying to hold together something that someone else had been quietly destroying. Lydia finally stepped forward, her voice cracking. Marcus, listen to me. Whatever she told you, she didn't have to tell me. I said quietly. You did. Every message. Every excuse. Every night you thought I wouldn't question. Tears welled in her eyes. She swallowed hard and reached out a hand, as if the air between us might hold her up. I didn't mean for her to go this far. I was confused. I didn't know how to talk to you. You talked to him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Emily looked down, her expression tightening. Lydia blinked rapidly, wiping her cheeks. She looked at Emily again, this time with a mix of panic and embarrassment, like the reality was finally hitting her. She wasn't in control. She wasn't the victim. She was cornered by the truth. I messed up, she whispered. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can try. You already tried with someone else, I said. She shook her head desperately. Marcus, please, don't do this here. Not with her sitting. She deserves to be here. I interrupted. More than you do. That broke something in her expression, like her heart had finally realized what her actions had cost. Her shoulders collapsed inward as if her body was folding under the weight of her own choices. Emily stood then, quietly, respectfully. I didn't come to fight, she said softly. I just came to stop pretending I'm blind. Lydia couldn't meet her eyes. The air grew thicker, heavier, until Lydia whispered, Tell me what you want, Marcus. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. For the first time in months, I felt calm. Not numb, not broken, just clear. I'm done, I said simply. Her lips parted, trembling. Done? Just like that? No, I said. Not just like that. Done because you left me long before today. I'm only choosing myself now. She let out a shaking sob and took a step toward me. I stepped back. Emily placed her keys in her hand and nodded at me before quietly making her way to the door. Lydia watched her leave like she just watched her last excuse walk out with her. When Emily stepped outside, I turned back to Lydia. I didn't bring her here to humiliate you, I said. I brought her here because I wanted you to see the person who got hurt right beside me. She didn't deserve what was done to her. Neither did I. Lydia pressed her palms to her face, her voice cracking through her fingers. I was stupid. I was selfish. You were dishonest, I corrected, and I can recover from heartbreak. But I can't rebuild a home on dishonesty. She lowered her hands slowly, tears streaking down her cheeks. Is there nothing left to save? I breathed out, a long, steady breath that felt like closing a heavy chapter. Not between us, I said. But you can save what's left of your own dignity by accepting the truth. She didn't fight anymore. She didn't beg. She just nodded, defeated, quiet, understanding her own destruction better than anyone else could have explained it. I walked past her, toward the front door. For what it's worth, I said gently, I hope you learned something from this. And then I stepped outside, into cool air that felt like the first real breath I'd taken in months, leaving behind the woman who thought I'd never find out, and a version of myself who believed her lies.